Well, thank you very much. And for our first panel for Millions of Files, Billions of Views, could I please welcome up Jack Wakefield and Ed Acheson. Well, a very warm welcome. And so I think, first of all, we're just going to play a couple of videos to show exactly what Little Dot Studios and Adobe do. But first of all, so Jack Wakefield is the Senior Content Delivery and Syndication Manager for Little Dot Studios. And as Ben said, they've been working together right from the beginning. And here is a video to show you what Little Dot Studios do.
Action.
We are Little Dot Studios, an award-winning digital content agency and media network. We exist to realize potential in every story. Working with the world's most recognizable brands, distributors, and sports rights holders, we discover, create, distribute, amplify, and monetize groundbreaking digital entertainment. We manage over 600 digital channels, delivering 6 billion organic views and more than 390 million hours of watch time every month.
Classic clips, exclusive mashups, and all the best stuff from this season.
Our vast digital footprint, combined with our award-winning in-house production studio, allows us to create audience-first, data-driven, platform-pioneering content.
Welcome to the British Independent Film Awards.
Yeah, you can't make that up, man. That's nice.
In 2016, we launched our own digital broadcast network, a portfolio of more than 35 channel brands that license and distribute over 15,000 hours of long-form broadcast content, in addition to BAFTA award-winning original productions. In 2020, we welcomed sports and branded content agency Wing and History Hit, the podcast network and content publisher. We are digital experts, platform specialists, and content superfans. We are London, LA, Munich, Berlin, and APAC. We are Little Dot Studios. This is our Little Dot, and here is where a new story begins.
Well done, Jack. That's great. Take the credit for that one. And just before we start discussing everything that Little Dot Studios are up to, Ed Acheson sat next to me, is part of Adobe, and BASE have been awarded the Video Solutions Partner status, integrating Adobe to Creative Cloud Workflow. And here is a video of Adobe.
This is a company that constantly tries to change and innovate. This is a company that doesn't stay still.
One of the reasons why we're obviously talking to Adobe as one of the leaders in customer experience platforms, because what it really requires is we need to think about that relationship that we have with those fans. It's very hard to have a relationship with 600 million individuals.
Well, thanks very much. If we could start with you, Jack. So obviously it's all about getting content to the fans. It's all about the end user. So in terms of creating content for fans and how it's being done, could you tell us what your current creation workflow is at Little Dot, and how are you working with BASE to do that?
Yeah, so Little Dot, as the sort of video kind of went into, we're completely multifaceted. Like, it's basically like whether or not you've known it or not, you've almost certainly watched a video of ours. Like, we handle sort of massive clients from like Graham Norton to Gordon Ramsay to having a whole sports agency now that we work with, and we have our kind of owned and operated channels where you can watch entire sort of libraries and catalogs of content, and yeah, we're sort of every digital touch point that you can kind of have a video, have a piece of media, have an imprint on, we're getting involved with. So yeah, I mean, in terms of workflow, there's a lot of different ways, and certainly from the past year or so, we've grown exponentially. We've kind of got from a 100-person team to and us going like, oh, we need a new office, to now we moved into that office and we're like, oh, we need a new office, because we've grown sort of to sort of 300 people, and had sort of new offices in APAC and in the US, and it's amazing to be part of it. And how we're using Base is just as the video sort of said, we were kind of one of their first. As the timeline that Ben presented was saying, we're one of the first companies that kind of worked with them, and yeah, we're both complementary to each other. Like it's making sure that all of our rushes, all of our content that we're getting from our different distributors are all coming in and all kind of being in a position so that our creatives can be creative and can use those assets and can help kind of get the best out of that content.
Well, it's really exciting, isn't it, when the growth is that rapid? But is it quite hard to sort of keep on top of? Because you've also got to predict what new projects will bring and how you make sure all that footage is ready in that workflow.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's definitely a challenge when it's sort of when you have all of those different departments and that kind of thing. And we've worked really hard to make sure that operationally we've been able to kind of have that foresight as things are growing and as things are scaling. Even if we're adding new departments, adding new kind of workflows into that mix, a lot of it is down to because we're employing experts to be part of this. It's then being like, right, well, we can use this workflow. We can make this part of our workflow more efficient and build upon those sort of ways we've been doing things.
That's great. Thanks, Jack. So, Ed, how does Adobe use data to support the content creation workflow? And are there any customers you're working with at the moment that use this workflow? And would you be able to tell us about them?
Sure. So data's probably the cornerstone of what we do. We started off to become a creative company with PostScript, PDF, and then realized actually that content was fine, but unless you knew where it was being used, when it was being used, the content become meaningless. So that's when we brought in data and then content delivery publication through the Adobe Experience Cloud, and going back to data again through Adobe Experience Platform. And really, data should be about empowering every individual who creates content or briefs content to go in, or within distribution, to have a look at the data that's aggregated from various different places, whether that's your own social, partner data, AI models that come in, see what's doing, create a hypothesis, then try different content, try new ways of expressing yourself to individual audiences, or to even, when you get to sufficient maturity, just to individuals, a one-to-one relationship. I used to DJ, funny enough, Graham Norton used to dance to me. A long time ago, and you see a crowd dancing, and you played a record a previous week in a different club, and it's gone down, everyone's shaking their hands and stuff, it's massive, and you play it this week and everyone's going, what the hell are you playing this for? And you can see Graham Norton wandering off to the bar and what have you, and you have to change the record fairly quickly, otherwise you lose your audience. And that's pretty much the same, just at a much bigger scale. Now, if you're one DJ in a club, you've got a control of that. And you've got sound engineers who can fix any equipment that goes and breaks along the way. But if you multiply that into 300 people at Little Dot, even more, you need to empower every individual to go and have a look at the data, make data-driven decisions, and then create the content off the back and see what works. Deliver it to the right person at the right place. And yes, we have lots of clients, customers using this sort of workflow. It's very much what we preach, the empowerment of putting creativity in the hands of individuals based on data. And sometimes that creativity comes from the most junior of people. A very unglamorous example, but when working in NatWest on their digital transformation, so less sort of beautiful video work, more boring banky work, but it's the same. She spotted an opportunity big Cannes Lion winning agency didn't spot it. All the directors didn't spot what was happening. Because she had access to the data, she spotted an opportunity. She was after a bit of the website, which was the lowest value, lowest risk part of the website, how to do online banking online. Really not exciting. But she spotted an opportunity, and that led to a 400% increase in app adoption overnight, because she had access to the data. That's a very bland example, but you multiply that into anyone's company to empower them, you get amazing results.
No, they're brilliant examples, particularly you DJing for Graham Norton. Hopefully in the speakeasy, we'll see if you want to play some tunes. No, you heard it here first. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and so many different ways it can affect from so many different types of options that they're looking at. So Jack, we obviously, when Ben was talking about the timeline with Little Dot Studios, how has the content delivery workflow changed over the past few years, and what has been the most noticeable change that you've seen?
Volume. We've grown sort of as we say, we've grown massively over the past sort of couple of years, and as I'm pretty sure that terabyte was probably from us, wasn't it, in your timeline? Because we even in the past year we sort of I think 2021 I think we ingested something like 120,000 files as part of our sort of work, and I think now we're the third largest streamer in the UK, sort of behind Amazon and Netflix. So I mean, again, you may not have realized, but you've definitely watched our content. And certainly, like to sort of be able to kind of manage that kind of mass ingest of content, we've had to really work hard to sort of look at that kind of efficiencies between, getting content in from different providers, making sure that we're kind of doing, getting them in efficiently, making sure they're getting up, and sort of just being able to get them into the hands of our creatives, the people who are actually doing the work, and again, kind of making those decisions based on that content, whether that's, originally I think Little Dot, when we first sort of saw that opportunity that the digital space was going to be here to stay and it was going to be massive, we started off with sort of I think 4 or 5 different brands as our kind of as our sort of network of channels, and now we've got like 40. So it's trying to then be like, right, this really works, let's really focus on that kind of content, and then this really works, let's focus on this piece of content, and trying to really kind of grow those different brands. And again, it's kind of having that sort of knowledge to like, right, we need people who have specialisms, who have experience in different sectors, and making decisions where we're acquiring things like History Hit or Wing as part of that kind of process, being like, right, we want to do sports. Who knows sports? Wing. Let's get those involved. It's kind of getting those.
Well, if we could just dive into that a tiny bit more, because I understand personnel and content has grown exponentially in the last few years. So in terms of solving it, I mean, do you work with BASE on that as well to discuss how you can solve, when you talk about, I can't even remember the number you just said for the amount of files that you're doing. I can barely back up my holiday photos. So it's amazing. So how do you work with BASE for that?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time kind of coordinating between Daniel, where are you? We have plenty of chance to chat to you guys and trying to prepare those different workflows, whether that's rushes coming in and trying to make sure that we're able to get those up into our deep archive sort of as quickly and as efficiently as possible, whether that's working through the different kind of workflows through Iconic as well, and how BASE kind of pass that kind of storage into that. I mean, the sort of workflows are very, very much kind of ironed out in that process while we're kind of getting prepared for them.
Thank you, Jack. So Ed, how are Adobe working with companies and brands as they scale, just like Jack was talking about? So, and is it easy for companies to add Adobe to an existing workflow?
So technically it's easy. We have integrations with BASE. Workfront's a really good example of that. When you're managing lots of different agencies, lots of different freelancers, Workfront can help tie them all together. The biggest challenge is internal quite often. It's how do you bring people like Wing in to be using the same systems, to working, to all have the same vision together. And that's where, again, you need to empower people with data that follows your strategy. and those KPIs that measured by the data then help steer the ship. And Workfront can help tie that together in terms of workflow management, and the creative tools then, whether that's through Base and Premiere and the video editing, or the production, Photoshop, Illustrator, and into publishing. But it's very much, it's about empowering the organization to go and create content and then scaling that. You need a good base level of decent content, decent environments, whether that's social, on-site, off-site, to go and publish that. And then you can start looking at more advanced things like AI. But you need to get everyone working in it efficiently and empowered and owning the content. That's key. If they don't feel they own the content, they don't value the content. It helps if you've got a nice brand and nice content. Not everyone has such nice content as Little Dot Studios, but whatever the content, you can still make people feel proud of it and really own it, and that's the exciting bit. Getting someone going home, going, I've got a great idea for this bit of content, going home, trying it out, testing it live, bringing it forward, tying other people together through Workfront, through our solutions, and then unleashing it to the world.
So that's very interesting. So that's much more people focused then, to make sure the person is interested to then get it to work. So you find that's the biggest part, to make sure it's understood.
Yes, because technology should be invisible. Technology really empowerment. Ever since Adobe started doing nice type fonts on printing, it's about empowering the individual to be creative. And if you don't get that ease of use, then what you end up is people doing stuff because it's easy. They might go into a file for some work they did a month ago because it's easy, and finding it on the video archive, and suddenly you get sort of creative degradation going down because you're not using your creativity. You're looking for shortcuts because the system is so hard to use. Whereas actually it should be easy to dip into your video archive, should even suggest things to you from where you're going to, from the work you're being to. You should be proactive to find the video, to find the content, to find the stock imagery, stock videos, everything you need to be creative. And that's about that individual then coming together, that creative team coming together to have the tools to be as creative as possible.
So do you find, and I'll ask this to both of you, do you find it's quite a bit of back and forth then? You develop the technology and then you see what the response is, and then they want more, because that's what we always want, we always demand more, and then you have to update it. Is it like that back and forth?
It's our software. We changed from doing box software with big launches, new version of Photoshop, quite some time ago. It's now incremental releases, and it's about looking what's working. You're looking at the recent announcement with Photoshop and NFTs, Substance with the Metaverse. All these things are being incrementally worked on and taking input from panels, from people who are interested, going, we really want video in XD, screaming for the last 2 years, and finally it's here. Things take time. So it's about a constant, just like with creating content, looking at the data, seeing what people need, seeing how people use our software, iterating, trying. Sometimes you mess up. Sometimes we think we're going great and we develop Flash and we back it out. We don't get it right all the time. But it's about trying new things.
Presumably as well, though, part of that is so that people can verbalize those questions as well, and
Yes.
verbalize those demands. Because sometimes you don't know what you're missing until someone's like, you can do this.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, great. I've been doing this the complete wrong way, or a complete sort of different way up until that point. But presumably, sort of some of the things you're working on are kind of like empowering people just to do that. Right?
Yeah, you don't know. It's absolutely right. You don't know you need it until you need it. It might be there's a whole. If you look at video creation, short form video creation, a lot of people using Premiere, After Effects, but the learning curve's quite steep. You put them into Rush or into Creative Cloud Express, and suddenly people who don't need to be creating such nice ones as yours can suddenly cut videos together quite quickly using simpler tools. So it is very much about then showing people what they can do and listening to them and getting them to try new things and new ways of being creative.
Thanks very much, guys. So in terms of, I know there's so much future thinking that goes on here, not only just to sort of expect the demands coming, but in terms of the future of content creation. Ed, how are Adobe developing to support the changing demands of the industry?
I think you've seen just by the billions of videos that are being put on base, short form content is being consumed now, whether that's through the rise through TikTok. You look at the sports, we're working with them, McLaren F1, you look at their content and they're creating really engaging, but they need to get it to the right people at the right time, in the right place, and they need to bring people on site. So I think short form video generating more of that, but in a way that's personable and actually means something to an individual. So if you like close passes in F1 races, we might create content that's more skewed towards that. So we take our data, blend it with the videos that are available to source that within Base, for example, and then cut new content based on individuals' preferences. And as you go through, even then using AI to start assembling some of that, I think is really exciting, that possibility. Not just for fans, but it might be for sponsors. You think about how much content Coca-Cola consumes globally from their sponsorships they do. Burger King with Stevenage FC, or all sorts of different really fun examples. So it's about getting that content to the right person at the right time. And then metaverse. Everyone's going to talk about metaverse at some point. It's interesting. One of the biggest examples of the metaverse was the streaming O2 of the concert. So you look at actually video crossing into the metaverse. A lot of people think just the metaverse about very standard roaming around, but there's a big cut over into actually hosting short form or long form content, streamed content within a virtual environment. You look at the Marshmallow in concert in Minecraft, or the Roblox events. They're becoming huge. So it's interesting to see video put into virtual environments rather than in the living room.
Cool. I think it's good.
It's very natural. So Jack, then, if we're talking about what response you're getting, and in terms of future content creation, what trends are you seeing that is in demand from your clients? And for example, quicker delivery and increased security, because I'm sure the security is also very important.
Yeah. So as you say, I mean, one of the sort of the things with all clients and ourselves as well is, we're sort of evolving constantly, and the sort of the way that we are trying to make content, the way we're trying to kind of look at the way that we deliver out those things, that they're rapidly changing. The different platforms we're working with, the different brands that we're working with, they all sort of have their own individual workflows and ways of wanting to make things, and part of that is then empowering ourselves to make sure we meet those, whether that's kind of ISO compliance, whether that's a whole sort of different range of sort of things to sort of review as part of your process. Certainly, yeah, I mean, being able to work with sports content where you may find that, a match is finished and people want those highlight clips and want those kind of assets ready to go pretty much instantaneously. It's kind of a rapidly changing kind of workflow where you kind of have to make sure that you can meet every challenge that any sort of client would like you to be able to fit.
And that's where time becomes really important, because you look at a match and that value of the content rapidly degrades. So being able to get that content, use that content effectively afterwards, or find new ways is critical. Otherwise, by the time the next match is gone, that content's pretty much done and dusted, except for end of season stuff.
Getting those highlight reels, yeah.
Exactly.
It's very demanding, isn't it? Having to keep up with everyone. So are there any, if you're allowed to talk about it, any exciting projects that are on the horizon you can tell us about, particularly with your Base partnership?
I think the thing that excites me, and this goes back to the core of what we're saying around data, is about how do you take great content that's being produced, like whether it's F1 or Real Madrid, for example, all that content that's being produced, how do you get it not just into the hands of distributors, but then also how do you bring partners on board, get their data on board, and how do you get your own user data on board and combine that data view to really create the content at a very, very one-to-one level. As you saw from the clip, Real Madrid have 600 million fans. How do you create real personalised video content for an individual fan? And then also, how do you create an experience and value exchange around that? So, you know, if you're a Coca-Cola fan, you go to a drinks machine, you can go and get a Real Madrid or McLaren freestyle Coca-Cola drink. But also maybe you watch some video content on the freestyle machine. So how do you wrap that content and the value exchange and the passion of that fan together, I think is the really exciting bit for me, because data brings that live, brings the content closer to an individual. Metaverse, I am excited about that. Augmented reality, even more so, but I think again, for me, it's getting wherever your content is, doesn't really matter because it has to be personal and relevant. It goes back to the core things about advertising and marketing many years ago. If it's not relevant, if it's not for you, you won't engage. So making it more relevant, using data in a more powerful way, using modeling to get closer to the engagement levels, that's the most exciting thing for me. And that's something now we can do with the millions of files, billions of views. We can get down to one person, one view, and loving it.
Well, I can tell you're very passionate about it, and thank you for explaining it so well. And how about you, Jack, just before we close? Anything exciting on the horizon that you are allowed to talk about? Maybe if you're not allowed to talk about it, let's talk about it.
I mean, for us, it's just getting more brands in, getting more sort of more work in, getting more kind of just sort of meeting more of those, like really engaging audiences with our content. I think, you know, we're really kind of hitting some amazing kind of peaks with our different engagement for our clients, especially, you know, things like Graham Norton is doing extremely well, and you know, it's really good to see, and you know, it's a really positive kind of growth for all of our content. It's really good.
Actually, just one last thing when you talk about that. It's interesting because the first thing you said to the audience was, you probably don't know it, but you've seen a lot of our stuff. It's almost like you're quietly doing it. Is that something you're meant to be doing, or is there going to also be a push to actually, no, this is us. This is us doing all this cool stuff?
Well, I think, you know, part of being sort of our digital sort of agency is being that the content should speak for itself, and we want the content to shine. You know, like this is the point. Is you know, you know, for all of these different pieces of content, is making sure that you have good sort of reception of the people who are you working with. That being said, obviously we have our own network of content. You know, we have our own TV channels. So if you have a Samsung TV or elsewhere, you can turn them on and go watch our content 24 hours a day. You know, so we're really sort of multifaceted in that kind of way. You know, we're able to have our brands out there as well as being able to support huge brands as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely fascinating. And could you please put your hands together to say thank you to Jack and Ed? Well done. Thank you. So a little different from today. Normally at this point I'd open up to a Q&A, but we're actually going to have our panels and then invite you to go down to Speakeasy downstairs, where you can talk with Ed, talk with Jack, network with everyone in here, so you don't have to worry about asking questions in front of everyone. They are very, as you can tell, passionate about what they're doing, what they're talking about, so please do pick their brains, and we'll see you back in half an hour for Rise of the Robots. Thank you very much.